Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session
with your host, Michael Rearden.
Have you ever taken a moment to look at the difference between momentum and endurance? Well, if not, good news, we're going to be talking about it today. And if so, then you are well aware of the differences in what momentum is and what endurance is. Momentum is going to be that short burst, that that flare that kind of lights up things, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get you to the finish line. Endurance, however, can be pushing through the pain, can be pushing through the hardship, and then fighting for what you want. I like to think of momentum and endurance in a very simple fashion. When you are getting ready for a race, we can look at the sprinters for the Olympics, right? So they're setting up for their run, and as soon as the gun pops or whatever, the bell rings or the computer beeps, they run, right? It's like a big burst of energy, like boom, I'm running, right? That momentum is created, right? It's like a propellant, like gunpowder, and boom, it's explosion, gasoline, right? Boom, it's that propellant, that fast explosion. But momentum eventually runs out, right? Because if we think about a bullet, if we fire it, yeah, it'll go so far, then it's going to fall. If we, have gas and there's an explosion, there's debris that's going to go so far, then it's going to fall, right? Gravity is going to take effect. So momentum can give you that boost, that initial oomph that you need to get going, right? But now that you're running, maybe your fastest, and now you're getting winded, right? Maybe you're getting dizzy. Maybe your legs are cramping, right? There could be so many different things that can be happening during that time. The momentum has already passed. That momentum that got you going and got you running at your top speed or whatever it was, now is a fight of endurance. Can I keep up with this pace? Can I keep running to my fullest? Maybe, maybe not, right? Endurance is something you have to train for. Endurance is something that you have to say, I'm going to get used to being uncomfortable. I'm going to get used to going this fast. I'm going to get used to doing this many things, because many people, they get momentum as something new, a new year, a new school year or something, right? So they get the momentum, but then they do not endure throughout it. By the end of it, or maybe even by the middle of it, they're already checked out. I can't tell you how many times when it comes to someone starting a profession, they have this young idea, this young mind. They're so exuberant, and eventually it's kind of like they're just this drone going into work and they're miserable. And I'm not saying like tech companies do a pretty good job at not making their employees so miserable, but I'm talking about more so of the corporate, the accounting, business, finance, and stuff like that. Many people, they just fall from their luxury idea of what their business is, and then they kind of fall into this idea of, well, this is what it is now. So they lose the joy, they lose the passion, and they basically endure the pain and the suffering rather than find fulfillment. Many CEOs who come to me and they're looking for fulfillment, I say, yeah, sure, we can get you fulfillment, but we need to figure out where we were before we gave it up, right? Where were you when you said, I want to focus on the money? I want to focus on the building versus what I would like to have in my life. Now, this is not to say that you should only focus on fulfillment, because I do believe that if you can maybe sacrifice, in a sense, your time, your life, or whatever, for an immense amount of growth, right? So you start this company, right? And you sell the company, right? So a merger or whatever, something. So you sell the company after 5, 10 years, you grew the company. And now you're basically scot free, right? So now you can go live your fulfilled life, right? So you gave 5 to 10 years of your life building something versus working 50, 60 years, for a company. And then what do you have to show for it? A little bit of retirement, a little bit in your 401k. I mean, it's not a good deal for you to spend 50 years over 5 or 10 years building a company and then selling it, right? So there's a quick way and there's not a quick way, right? The not quick way is what many people choose to do. So they endure through the pain, right? They get the momentum, they get the degree, they do those things, and then they find themselves enduring through the struggle and the pain, and they don't want to make the changes, essentially. So I said, you know what? I need to really get clear on what momentum and endurance is so people can truly understand. So I wrote this article here, Momentum versus Endurance. And basically, it talks about how many of us dream. And those dreams can be the momentum, right? Those dreams can start us, they can get us going. And we think about it, right? Are we going to be consistent? Most of those dreams are not. So we don't endure. So there's a process that we have to follow if we want to create the balance necessary for momentum to have its effects and then endurance to get us to where we want to get to essentially. So, number one, start strong, finish steady, right? We don't want to just start strong and then all of a sudden we're barely making it past the finish line, right? We want to start strong, figure out our stride, figure out our pace where we are comfortable, where we are challenging ourselves, where we are able to keep this up for a very long time. Now, when I say the word comfortable, it's not the comfort that we talk about in the podcast quite a bit, like comfort zone. Comfortable meaning I can keep this up, I can endure through the pain versus, whoa, I'm going too fast. I'm going to stop in 10 seconds if I don't figure something out. You have to figure out where you are, right? Now, of course, when it comes to running, right? Of course, your level of fitness is going to be different, right? So the more you train, the better your fitness is. So you might be able to endure if you have good training or good discipline and good habits. But it's not so much to say, well, you eat healthy and things like that. It doesn't matter how much you eat if you have to train your cardiovascular system. You have to be able to run or walk for a period amount of time, for an extended period amount of time. So if you can't be realistic on what your goal is, you are not going to make it. So if you're trying to get someplace too quick for where you're capable of now and you don't make it, did you truly use that momentum, that drive that you had initially for something good? Now, the idea was good, right? But you didn't endure through the process. So you have to make sure that the goal that you have is realistic and the pace that you set is realistic for yourself in your current situation because you might be at a slow pace today, but you're steady. Good, right? We want steady. And as you're going and as you're moving, you might get stronger, right? You might become better. And so you might be able to elevate what you're doing, right? So instead of going 2.5 miles an hour, maybe you're able to go 2.8 or maybe a big jump, 3.5, right? And then so you acclimate to 3.5 and then maybe you go to 4.5 and then 5.5, then 6, then 7, then 8. And then before you know it, you are going so fast. You're moving through things, right? But we have to be able to pay attention to those incremental steps. That 2.5 to that 3 or that 3.5 is a huge victory. We have grown and we have to acknowledge that we have grown in that time. Because if we don't, we're not going to be able to endure. Our mind needs reinforcement. So as we're progressing, our mind is going to constantly say, hey, I would love for me to keep on going and keep on fighting. But what am I getting in return? It might say, I'm getting, sore muscles. I'm getting sleepless nights. I'm getting more stress. This is something I don't want to keep up with. So the momentum that you might have had and the exuberance that you had, your mind doesn't want to endure. Now, of course, if you have that strong mindset of enduring through the process, then, you have a high probability and likelihood to get to where you want to be. But many people, they fall just short of success. Maybe it was one more call, one more door they had to knock on. Maybe it was one more email. It was one more seminar. It was one more something. And they say, you know what, I'm going to stop. And everyone's so worried and so quick to say, you know what, I want progress today. Well, what is progress truly defined? Progress can be the steady flow of improvement. And what is that improvement, right? So, depending on what it is for business growth, progress could be I have one client today and tomorrow I have two. Or maybe I have one big contract and now I have two big contracts. So, we're making progress, but then we can't allow progress to only be forward. We can allow progress to be lessons also. So, progress can be I have one client and I lost to one client because something had happened. Now I know not to do that to lose that client in the future. I know how to get clients because I got one client already. So now you get another client, but now this time you have learned from your failure. You have learned from your mistake. So it's not so much that you always make forward progress. So now you have more than what you had. Is that are you gaining something, whether it be physical or mental, from the lessons that are being taught to you? Most people, they fail to understand their lessons, so they are doomed to repeat them. And many people, when they run into this rat race, it's because they're just doing the same things that are not bringing them about any type of endurance in their life. They're enduring through the pain, they're enduring through the hardship, but they're not giving themselves the momentum for the change that they will like, and then enduring through that change process. Because when you do have something that's keeping you static and keeping you stable, it is more difficult to create the momentum, because you might say, why in the world am I going to give myself this burst of energy to do all of these hard things and to persevere to get to the other side? Like, what am I going to gain? Well, you're going to get more happiness. You're going to get more fulfillment. You're going to get a more meaningful lifestyle. All of these things are there, but it's more challenging to look at them when we're trying to figure out, well, I'm in survival mode. So momentum is going to be, all right, I'm starting. Endurance is, I'm trying to survive, maybe, right? I'm trying to keep this pace up. But if you work hard, right, and you say, this is uncomfortable for the time being, and it might not be where I stay long term, right? Because you might reach your goal. And once you hit your goal, you might say, then that's the easy life, right? Retirement. And that's also another can of worms, too, because now when you retire, where's your purpose, right? You had the momentum, you had the fire. But now it's like, do you even need to endure? So we have to give ourselves this idea of what the mind needs to continually be strong. And it's very similar to the body in movement. The body's in constant vibration. It needs to constantly move. If you don't move, if you don't weight train, your bone mass is going to lower. You are going to start to develop osteoporosis. And all of these things might sound like, oh, it's just with old age. But the reality is because you decided not to continue with what your body needs and requires of you to keep on going. And so we have to say, hey, what do I need to do, even though it's inconvenient long term, for me to stay in my best shape or my best mindset? So we have to give ourselves focus on the habits, right? We have to focus on the habits that we are creating. Now, those habits can be easy, right? So the habits of eating healthy, going to the gym, walks, certain amount of steps. They say you need at least 7,000 steps a day, right? I know some people are like, I have to get 5,000, I have to get 10,000. The number is 7,000. Okay. So for anyone who's having a hard time with how many steps they need, is 7,000. So can you get 7,000 steps a day? Right. Now, those 7,000 steps don't have to happen all at once. And I think people think, oh man, 7,000 steps all at once is daunting, right? But guess what? 7,000 steps start the moment you wake up. You go to the bathroom, you got to go to your car, you got to walk into the office building, maybe. Maybe you go to the gym, so you get a couple thousand steps there. And before you know it, you're on your feet at the office. Maybe you're getting some steps there. In the evening, you're home with your kids, running around with them, you get some steps there. So all of these things are going to be based on your current circumstance, right? Because you might not need 7,000 steps all at once because your life is so busy, but maybe your life is not busy. Maybe you are a remote worker and you don't go to the office and you don't have to get up out of bed. Your laptop's right there. You grab your laptop and you get to work. So it just depends on your current situation that you have to develop a plan. So the habits that you are creating are going to be habits that are going to be according to your life right now. And then, of course, if something changes, you need to change those habits. Because if you are, let's say, 2,500 calories a day and you're going to the gym 2 times a day, sure, you need those calories in order for you to, keep up with that body, with that energy in order to go to the gym 2 times a day. But if you're not going to the gym 2 times a day, you don't need all those calories. Why in the world do you need all that energy? Because if you're just home, just relaxing, you don't need all that energy. So there's things called maintenance calories where you have your maintenance calories, and those maintenance calories essentially are just talking about if you want to stay the same weight and stay where you are, this is how much calories you need. But our foods today are so, rich in calories where it's like, okay, if I, want, a hamburger that's 1,000 calories and I only have 500 calories more, that's two protein shakes. So it's like, whoa, before you know it, you're already at your maintenance calories. So if you are eating more, you're going to start getting on the weight, and it happens without your consent sometimes because it just seems so natural, right? You're like, well, I'm still hungry, right? I'm not full. So, I used to eat this way. So there's many different mindsets that happen when it comes to the habits that we have created and developed. So, in this article, we talk all about the difference in momentum and endurance, but then we also talk about the idea of the power in terms of basically looking at short term and long term. Because short term is that momentum, as I said, right? Because if you have to do something very challenging for a period of time, maybe you're a sales rep or something, right? And those jobs can be not so much fun, right? But maybe after you do it for, let's say, a 3 month span of time, you're going to get promoted to manager. You don't have to make any more calls, right? You have to manage a call center or something like that, right? But you have to work really hard in order for you to be promoted. So during those time, that short period of time, you have an immense amount of work. So you need to make sure that momentum can last 3 months or whatever it be until you get that promotion. Now, if you lose the momentum prior, then of course you risk the promotion, or you risk not even moving forward in that profession, in that career. But then when you finally get to that position, what do? Most people take off the gas. They go, oh, I'm going to take it easy, right? Well, there's no right or wrong way, I guess, to, your workflow. But what I will say is if you endure through all of that hardship after you were, trying to, have this short break, the long period aspect is, well, are you going to stay here long term now that you got promoted to manager or something like that? No, maybe you want to be the CEO. So you need more momentum now, right? Well, momentum on momentum on momentum is going to get you to the moon, right? Because when you think about it, in order for the rocket to get out of the Earth's atmosphere, right, they use a huge amount of propellant to break through the atmosphere. And then from there, they don't use so much of propellant to get to where they want to go. They basically say, hey, we have enough force, momentum moving in this direction, and we're going to gradually make our way to our destination. Now, for example, if we wanted to get to Mars, it would take about a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending, how much fuel we have, and how fast we're going, and how fast we're stepping on the pedal. We can get there very quickly, but it's going to take months to get to Mars the way we would have to do it. We would have to launch into space, and then from there, the momentum would take us to Mars, right? So we're going to just slowly make our way to Mars, right? We're just going to coast through space. Now, of course, the rocket is going to have propellant. It's going to be able to move. It's going to move if it's going to collide into some debris, some rock, some meteor, another planet, right? So, of course, they're going to use the propellant to get there, but then they also are going to make sure that they have enough propellant to launch again and to make it back to Earth. So there's many factors that needs to be there. But in the sense of life on Earth, we don't have to worry about losing our momentum or not having enough momentum to finish it or finish things or to make it through. We have an endless amount of momentum because we can be as combustible as we want to be. And I'm not talking about being combustible and being destructive, but being combustible to make change because we can do great things. We can go, be spontaneous and do this and grow, and we can do something different. Or we can say, you know what, a 9 to 5 and endure it. And eventually we'll get to where we want to be. There's two aspects to how you can approach it: quick or slow. Now, of course, the higher it is, we start fast and we coast our way, and then we, have another burst of energy and we coast our way. Sure, you can do that, but what essentially is momentum is a mindset to say, hey, we can be pronounced right now. We can say, hey, I'm going to do something great. I'm going to do something that's going to shake the boat or whatever. From there, people are going to go, whoa, like, where did this person come from? Right? The momentum can be that. So sometimes you have to figure out how much momentum you need to do and when to be loud and when to make moves and when to coast. And then you give more momentum and then you do what you have to do. It's almost like riding the wave, right? The surfers are not going to just fight the wave, right? The waves are going to happen. And the same thing is in life. Life is going to happen. So there's times when you should dig in, dig deep, and there's times when you should say, hey, let me endure through the process. Let me go at my pace, steady to the finish versus I'm trying to finish, right? If you try to get to where you want to be too quick and you're not ready, it's going to be a destructive thing for not only yourself, but for your mind. There's many aspects that we have to understand. And this article right here, momentum versus endurance, we talk about many of the different things from work related, finances, consistency to fitness, all the way to having the wins in your personal and professional life. Because we might think that, the challenge for life itself is to always show up every single day. In a sense, we do have to show up. And a determining factor for how we show up is going to be either our physical fitness or our mental fortitude. So we need to figure out, where are we? Can we make that boost, right? Can we have that short burst of momentum? Or are we in the enduring process where we have to almost relax in a sense? But that relaxed moment is the launch pad, is the foundation for us to once again propel, to have that burst of energy, that momentum to get us to the next area. Because when you hit a plateau, it's not so much endure anymore. It's momentum to break through, right? So when you hit that point, when you feel stuck, you need to do something 5, 10 times more than what you're doing. Break through, endure, acclimate, and then when you hit the plateau again, because you're coasting, you do use the momentum again. So there's a process to momentum and endurance in the sense of personal and professional development and your growth. So it's something that, you can spark that idea in your mind today. You can get yourself a coach. You can continue to read the article. The link's right down in the description box below. So you can learn more about momentum and endurance. And then you can figure out how this can be applied in your life. No matter what circumstance you are currently living in, momentum can be the start that you need, and endurance can be the coasting part to get you to where you need to be until you have to have that short burst of energy again, of focus, of determination, whatever you want to consider it, to get to the next level. So it's time to level up in a sense. We start with momentum, continue with endurance, and we repeat the process until we get to the goals and to the dreams that we want to have in our life.